Hello everybody, welcome to Discussing Tabletop for January 26th, 2019. Of course, joining me as usual is my illustrious co-host Joe. And today we have a special guest, David, I'm probably going to try to butcher your BAF name here,
Nice.
Gerrard?
Yeah, Gerrard.
Gerrard, I got the first time.
Yeah, first victory.
You know.
Podcast.
Names are always a problem for me, so
yes.
When I get it right the first time, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah, but he's joining us of Junk Spirit Games. He's going to talk with us a little bit about his stuff, and he's going to join the rest of our conversation, which leads us into this week's docket. We're going to start out, of course, talking with David here about Junk Spirit Games and Battle of the Bards. Then I talk about Ravnica Allegiance is actually out, the new Magic the Gathering set. So that's an important thing for us to talk about. We don't talk Magic as much anymore, but it's around, and
it's around. It comes around every 3 months or so too, as well. So
yeah,
a couple days ago, new set, good news, real good.
Yeah. Want to talk about Shadowrun. Talked about a little bit about the Shadowrun 30th anniversary, or is it 35th for Shadowrun? It's 30th. That was coming up, and the No Future book is out, and I was looking at it, and it's interesting. Then we got Saga of Midgard, a very Viking-based RPG that's out. Knights and Legends, another dark fantasy. Out of our normal Kickstarter support section, I do want to add to the main group, Zorro the RPG is up on Kickstarter. I want to talk about that because it's very interesting. It's Zorro.
Interesting. And
then Discovering New Lands, the no box is the same board game, has a co-op rules for it now. Yeah. Then, of course, we'll head into our normal segments, our deeper discussion where we review games, Kickstarter Korner, where we do give shout-outs to Kickstarters, and finally, our Week in Tabletop, where Joe and I talk about our tabletop for the week, and finally ending up with our Consult the Table, where if you have any questions for us, go ahead and ask us. Alright, let's though start out with David. Why don't you talk to us about Battle of the Bards?
Yeah, Battle of the Bards is my team's fourth game. It's a dice rolling deck builder, 2 to 4 player competitive dice rolling. We initially had come around with the idea. The idea from the name came from a dad joke that Justin threw to me once. He's like, "Hey, what about Battle of the Bands?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What about this? I got a good one. What if it was Battle of the Bards?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, okay, fun." That's a great theme, dude. What do you do in the game? He's like, "I don't know. That's the game." And I was like, "What? No, that's a theme. Like, there's no game here." So we were actually working on another project, and then this weird epiphany hit me around an idea where you can make a game. So the epiphany was, or the first thought that I had was like, I want to make a game where you roll a bunch of dice. You just roll a ton of dice, and it doesn't really fully matter what you roll. Like, the colors of the dice matter, and in some cases the numbers can matter, but you use them in such different ways that it doesn't matter what you like. You don't have any, it's not like, oh, I need a 2+ here, and then you roll 1 and then I can't do anything, right? I want it to be a lot more you can still use your 1s for something else. So that was kind of the design goals from it. And so then we took about a year to make it, about probably over 500-ish playtests through various events, stuff like that. We brought it to Gen Con last year, put it on Kickstarter, and and it's a really, I know I sound like the same guy who's telling you, "Oh, I designed a game, it's really great." It's a really great game, and the reason why I'm saying that is our feedback that we have from the playtesters and just the random people we've been meeting at events, we have never once heard somebody say a disparaging word about it, and everyone's really happy with it. So that makes me feel like we're on the right track to make us a pretty strong game.
Cool. Now, I did notice that you are redoing your Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's a whole story, right? And it's so funny that you set this podcast up, months ago, and then it just so happens I'm in this weird quasi spot to talk about this. So I actually appreciate being here for sure. This weird thing happened. So when you when you start to go down the path of making games, and of course, this is our 4th game, so we've made 3 games successfully, delivered them all, most of them before we said we were going to deliver them. They're very high quality games, and people kind of have gotten to know us for that reason, for those reasons. And while you start making games, manufacturers reach out to you constantly. They're when I launched Kickstarter, I had probably 5 new messages that day from manufacturers that I've never heard of, and they're like, "Hey, you should check out our game." So they also know when you start to talk about it that, hey, maybe we can jump in there and offer them a thing, an offer. So when I started talking about Battle of the Bards, like maybe, like online, like really pushing, like, hey guys, this is a game that's really coming. We're going to make it. We got some of the imagery, we got the box art, stuff like that. Started kind of just, putting it on our Facebook page and stuff like that. We had a couple of manufacturers reach out to us, and one of them reached out to us through a really good friend of mine of old days. When I say old days, I'm talking pre-Magic the Gathering old days. So that was back when I was a kid, and super into Magic the Gathering, and basically I made a good friend through that. And this good friend runs another company right now in the board gaming world, and he basically was like, hey, these guys are the guys you want to use for real. And I was like, yeah, because you get that kind of stuff all the time. So then we went through the process, and as we're coming up to the Kickstarter launch of Battle of the Bards, about maybe 2 weeks before, we get a package from them. After we were working with them, I was kind of like thinking, yeah, well, the guy was like, hey, give me some digital files and we'll print a preview copy. Now, another thing that you may not know, but if you get a preview copy of your game, I know this is a long story, but I'm getting to it. If you get a preview copy of your game sent to you, it usually costs a lot, like $400-$500 from the manufacturer, because they got to stop their presses for a second and make this special case for you, and then they make one game and send it to you. And so I was like, how much? Because I'm broke. So, and he's like, oh no, free of charge. We want to show you what we can do. So we got it like about a week before the campaign started. And so this is like 2 weeks ago, and it was really good. Like the quality was super high, and that's a big priority for us. And that's mainly the reason why we never switch, is because the manufacturer we use is very high quality. And then they told us a quote, and the quote was really good. It was so good that it was kind of not realistic. I was like, and then I realized that they were using an old quote of what we thought Battle of the Bards might have in it. So it had only 40 dice in it, for example. But right now we're offering 60 dice in it. That's just one thing, right? And there was all these other things. Like the box size was different. We were initially going to do a very small box size, but because of the extra dice and the extra punch board stuff, we had to go to a bigger box. So I looked at that quote and I was like, oh, that's why it's so low. I bet if I were to ask them for another quote, it'll probably come in closer to what we're dealing with our main manufacturer. So I gave them that information back, and I was like, okay, here, look, I like your quote, I see what you're doing, I do like the quality of your stuff. Here's the real specs of the actual game. Let me see what you got. Thinking that like I might switch to them maybe after the Kickstarter campaign. So Kickstarter campaign starts, right? 2 days later, I get the quote back, and it's line by line, which is not what a lot of manufacturers do. They like say, oh, you want this many cards? This is how much it is exactly. And then you want dice? This is how much it is exactly. So I could see it all. Like it was like a la carte kind of thing. And the quote was really strong, and it comes in at such a good value, along with all of the add-ons that we were planning on creating, coming in at such a great value, that I realized that I need to change our reward tiers. And you can't do that in Kickstarter. If someone's backed any of your pledge tiers, you can't change your pledge tiers around.
Oh, geez.
Right. So the only solution here is to close it down and then come back up with better pledge tiers that, frankly, are cheaper. Obviously, being cheaper is a big draw to a lot of gamers because they want to make sure to spend their dollar wisely. But I hope that people will also see the value that we're offering them through our extra add-ons and the kind of freebies that you'll be getting. Now essentially for the same exact price, you're going to be able to get we had it as a thing where it was like $45, and then if you wanted to add on like guitar pick, we had like real guitar picks, and we had like we're going to make a little booster pack that's a fixed set of cards, and we're going to offer that for $6 to the campaign. And then we have like these little personal play mats, and we have an enamel pin that we created through Gen Con. So those are the 4 add-ons that we have. Now, essentially, for the same cost as the core game, you're going to be able to get the real guitar picks and that card expansion pack at the same price. And then if you don't want that, then you come in and you could be able to get the game for something like $16 cheaper. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it's so much of a difference that I have to do it. Have to do it. And the fact that the quality came in so strong, I've got this old buddy of mine, giving me his word that this is the company where you want to work with, and I believe him. It's just that's what we're doing. So we're going to relaunch again on Monday. I'm fully confident that if we would have stayed with the campaign, that we would have funded. And I know that we're going to fund, on Monday, right? So, or with that campaign that would launch on Monday. So I'm pretty confident in all of that. I think that the customers, or the gamers that have been following us, they're just as passionate as we are about games, and they're really excited about being able to back my small team. I mean, it's 3 of us.
Yeah.
They're excited to help someone like me out, essentially, through that Kickstarter system, because they know that they're going to get a good product and a superior product, frankly, to a lot of games that are out there, and without being too cocky about it, when they meet us at events and when they talk to us online, I think we show who we are, and I think that people are really happy with what they're getting through us. So it's good. It's good. We're really happy with this. I mean, it looks weird. It's going to show up as a negative on my Kickstarter, page for a long time. But I don't, once we relaunch and everything like that, I think people are going to be pretty happy.
Cool. That's excellent. Yeah. That's such an interesting story too.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I do want to ask kind of, how did you get into Junk Spirit Games? How's that kind of thing? Because it seems like you guys are doing very good now. You've got, 4 successful... Well, this will be the 4th successful game?
Sure. Yeah, so initially, now all the 3, it's only 3 of us right now. We have a 4th artist, a 4th person who is a 2nd artist, I should say, and we'll be using him for one of our future games. We have a couple other contractors as well. We have a miniatures guy, for example, coming on. But this is like something that this is garage band stuff. For real. Like we all have normal jobs and that's the jobs that are keeping the roof on our house, and we're just kind of jamming together in my artist, Justin Hillgrove is my artist, in his studio. So we'll just go over there and hang out. So initially when and because of that, we only make a game like every 10 months. It takes forever because we're only putting maybe 20 hours a week maybe on these things, So a normal company can move twice as fast as we do, if not more, because they have more people. Excuse me. So how it came about, Justin Hillgrove and I, we went to high school together, but it's been 20 something years, and I didn't really know him very well when we were in high school. We just kind of went to the same high school, and so but we shared some friends, and so I'd see him maybe once or twice a year at parties and stuff like that. And so I knew that he was a very good artist, and I knew that he had kids around my age. So basically I just pitched to him, hey, look, I'm a game designer, or I'd like to be an actual game designer. I'd like to have my name on a game, right? And I've got some ideas, and I pitched a couple to him, and he was like, this is really good. I had a really good pitch to him as far as telling him what I thought would probably happen if we were to launch a game, and I wanted to make a smaller game, and our first game was called Junkie, and I wanted to make a game that was, I think the game was only like 100 cards. It ended up being 150 after the Kickstarter campaign because we added so many extras. But just a second. All right, sorry, I had a cough there. All right.
It's fine.
So, yeah. So basically, he wanted the game I pitched him was like a mining game, and he was like, I'm working on this like comic book that has these characters that are these like sentient raccoon-like guys, and they're called oh no, something imps. Oh no, I forgot the name of them. What were they called? Okay, whatever. So these little imp-like characters, and And then they live in this junk lands that goes for miles and miles and miles. And in the junk lands were these characters called junk spirits. And what they are these little like whimsical little like simple-minded spirits that they will go and they'll occupy pieces of junk and they will like play games together. And then when they occupy pieces of junk, they'll like animate them. So they'll put them together and like make little things, and they just basically they're just a bunch of children kind of thing, like having a good time out there. And so I was like, we should take that as our name, like Junk Spirit, because it's definitely kind of the feel for what we're trying to do. We're trying to make games that are family friendly and still have a great time, and it's not like super serious. We're not trying to like make these really realistic games. We're always going to be making games that are just kind of just fun to play, still really strategic, so people that are our age don't get bored out of their minds to play these games with new gamers. And of course, new gamers usually means young gamers, but games that you can easily bring out at like like at Thanksgiving, and you're not going to worry about offending anybody. No one's going to get no one's going to be like, oh hey, don't look at that card, kind of thing to their kids. And but the games are still simple enough, and that everybody can learn, and again, strategic enough that that people that are hardcore gamers will enjoy them. So that's kind of where it came about. Justin was really excited to work on the project, and then I told him that at the end of the process, if we make any money at all and you don't hate me, we'll make another one. So whenever I say that, he always jumps in and goes, so the game we're working on right now is our last game. Every time, by the way, it's so but yeah, so literally we launched Dunking, we sent it out, and I said, all right, guys, let's stop for a second. I'm just talking to two people, by the way. Do you hate me? And they're like, no, we're good. And I'm like, okay, next game, Fire to the Queen. And then we just went right into it, And so that's going to happen after this one. We'll do Battle of the Bards. We'll launch it. We'll get it out to everybody. And I'm going to turn to them and go, do you hate me? And they're like, no. And then next game coming. So that's just kind of how we go.
Cool. Now, I did notice something that you seem to be building your own kind of world with the last three games, at least. This, Tsandor, if I'm saying it right.
Tessendor.
Tessendor,
yeah. Funny story about that one. Well, this is a good one. I don't know if I want to reveal this because this is a big secret.
Okay.
So Tessendor came about when we were making Bite of the Queen. We wanted to make a fantasy-based world that had a lot of political intrigue to it, but not a lot of like, when you play Dungeons and Dragons and like things are dying left and right, and whole towns are being destroyed and stuff like that, right? We wanted to create a more kind of family-friendly version of a fantasy role-playing game world that we can create content into. So, if you read the lore that we've created from Bard of the Queen, the Tessendor universe, you'll see basically these 8 different guilds that kind of control the whole world, and all these 8 guilds, they basically do the things that they do to essentially gain power and gain strength and make money, but none of them are doing anything really overtly bad, if that makes sense, right? Like there's a group that basically they handle all the transportation and they make money off of, basically off of moving all the goods around. There's a guild that that gathers all the knowledge in the area and they freely give it out. They essentially, they're a band of professors that they create these huge colleges and things like that. So we wanted to create like this kind of like almost fantasy utopian world kind of, right?
Okay.
And then build into that, right? So everything we have in that world for Tessendor is like these I'm gonna mess the word up. Anamorphic. There you go, anamorphic creatures. So you've got like these, we've got these alligator people and these badger people, and we've got some of the bad guys are fox people, and we've got these snake characters, and stuff like that. So the big secret thing though is the Tessendor name. The Tessendor name came about when we were trying to figure out the name for the world. And here's what's crazy. The games made by what's the company? The games they're made Daily Magic. Daily Magic makes that series of games set in their universe called Valeria, right?
Okay.
So we literally were pitching a name to ourselves, Valeria, and we were super excited about it. Like, this is it. We did it. Valeria, it's the best name ever. And then I looked over and I was like, what? Wait, what they? And these guys are in Seattle. I feel like I was maybe influenced, but I swear I didn't see that name before we came up with it. So, kudos to them. They got it. So we were like, oh no, what do we do? And my buddy my buddy, who's one of our other, the potential other artists we're bringing on, he was out walking his dog, and he sent a picture to me of a political campaign, what do you call it, sign, right? And it was somebody that was running for office, like a local office, like mayor or something like that. And the guy's last name was Tessendora, but he sent the photo to me with his thumb over the A, right? And he's like, "Look at that!" And I was like, "That is the best name for a land ever." So yeah, we that's a super secret, by the way. So hopefully, no one's listening to this podcast, because that guy can come at me for royalties, I think. But so basically, so that's what we did. We again created a super family friendly world. We've actually been approached by multiple role playing game companies that are like on the cusp of making their own role playing game world, and man, we are really considering it, because I think that if we found a role playing system that was like really simplistic, I think that our world really could make a great kind of intro like level RPG world. And so we made it this fantasy world, so that when we make a game that we think can be fantasy, like theme, that we can just basically put it in the same world, so everybody can kind of recognize the same thing, they know what they're going to get from it, and then everybody can have fun kind of as the games fill out in lore. I'm a big Games Workshop guy. I remember when Games Workshop was just the Rogue Trader book. Yeah. Okay, I remember reading all of the rules of everything that ever came out through the 90s and the early 2000s, when I had my game store. I used to run a game store, and I know that stuff, and I really love what they did. I would love to be able to do something like that. Obviously, we're a small team, but over time we'll build into it. It's great. No,
that's really cool. That I actually was thinking about asking about, like, since you're building a world, about the role-playing aspect, and so you answered that already.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It gets pitched to us probably 3 to 5 times a year since Bite of the Queen came out, which was 2 years ago. So we pitched maybe 6 to 10 times, but every one of them looks really strong. There's a lot of people that are making role-playing games that don't have like an IP or a theme to them, that are making some pretty cool stuff that I don't know what they're gonna, what IP or theme they're gonna slap on it, but when it comes out, there's some good RPGs coming that no one even knows.
I'm sure. That's another reason that I always like having this show, because then you get a chance to talk about some of those things when they're finally coming out.
Right.
Now, I think I have like one last big question for you. Sure. So yes, Battle of the Bands is the one coming out now, or Battle Bards. Battle Bards.
Yep.
I think I did that at Facts Unplugged.
The pun gets you. Yep.
The pun got me a couple of times. Are you already working on the next thing, or are you waiting for this one to be kind of like the dust settle before you work on it?
So in this case, it's a good question, because in this case, this one's different than our previous games. The previous games, when we launched them on Kickstarter, we were basically like, do you, backers, potential backers, do you want us to finish this game? This game, and this time, we're very ahead of ourselves. And so we are actually, the game itself is done. The rules are essentially written correctly. We have draft rules written, so they need to be polished, obviously. But we're really far ahead. There is a high possibility, and again, this is super secret, so hopefully nobody's looking. I'm literally looking around my house like there's cameras right now. You'd see me doing this like 5 or 6 times if I was actually showing my face. Super secret. We're saying that the game will deliver in November 2019. There's a high possibility, because of how far ahead we are, that this is going to probably come out right around Gen Con. Now, we're not timing it perfectly with Gen Con. It's just we put that November in there because, again, we're a small team. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we might be coming out early because we are ahead. Now, because we're ahead, we are definitely working on more games. Obviously, as a game designer, I didn't come into the idea of trying to make games with only 1 or 2 ideas. We actually have 3 other games that we're working on, and they kind of are jockeying for position to be the next one, right? That we actually push in, all the way. We're like, okay, yes, this is the one that we definitely want to make.
Yeah.
I've got a 2-player only asymmetrical cooperative game that I'm really excited to bring. I think that there are so many people that come up to our booth and our events and talk to us online that they're a couple, oh, my boyfriend and I, we play games together and I love crushing him, or oh, my wife and I, we just started getting into board games, or my son and I, I'm a single mom, and we, he's really into games, and I want to like, do you have anything for couples, right? For two people. And I think that this is something that not a lot of game companies are really paying attention to, and I'm excited to bring that game forward. Then we have a game, another 2-player game that's competitive and is just a game where you basically just dunk on each other back to back. The idea is that you're both assassins that have access to time-altering devices. So you basically kill each other back to back to back, and then you have an ability that kind of like the lifelines in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
You essentially have like 4 or 5 lifelines that I wasn't actually standing there because I used this time module that I'm over here now. And so essentially once you run out of time manipulation, then you lose the game. So I'm excited about that one because it's short. We're talking like 10 to 15 minutes, and and so that one would be actually really easy to bring forward as well. Then we are working on an adventure game, trying to make everybody's gonna roll their eyes when they hear this, but I'm trying to make a dungeon crawler like game, but we've got probably 4 or 5 big twists on the genre that I think that no one's done before, and will actually streamline the process in a really, really good way. And I think that people will say it's like, once we release the game, people will be like, it's kind of like a dungeon crawler, but it's really not. But it's the best way to describe it right now. So those 3 games are the things that we're working on in the future. We have probably 4 or 5 others that we could bring forward. But yeah, we're definitely keep going. We're going to keep going for sure.
Cool.
Very nice.
Awesome. I think that kind of hits on everything I wanted to mainly talk about with you about Battle of the Bards for Cup. And Joe, do you have anything you want to hit on or questions?
No, I think we hit on everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, let's move on, though, because we do have some other topics we want to hit on. And I do want to start with, of course, Ravnica Alliance. And not only do I want to talk about the set a little bit, I want to kind of talk a little bit about where we're hinted on the Magic kind of continuing going. Because just some information that I've seen recently about, like, the next set and stuff got me kind of a little I wouldn't say worried, but, concerned that they're repeating old mistakes. So,
right. I think it's cyclic with them.
Yeah, it really is. It seems that way. So, Ravnica Alliance, it's the continuation of the 3rd group of sets in Ravnica. People love Ravnica. They usually do a good job. I mean, it seems like they're doing a good job. I've kind of looked over a bunch of the cards and stuff. I've looked over the set. I'm very happy that what they're doing right now. They've done a good job as usual. I don't know if, Joe, you've had a chance to kind of look over anything.
I've had a chance to play with it a little bit, actually, because
that's right.
Magic Arena.
You've been doing a lot more Magic Arena. I've just barely kind of scratched into that at this point in time.
From what I've seen, it's good. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to do a lot because I don't have the money to pour into Magic Arena, and I don't have the diamonds right now to do one of the tournaments. I can speak today.
Yes.
So, which you can win packs and everything with. So I've gotten a few packs here and there just by playing, but I don't have a lot. And I haven't really used much in decks yet because I don't have a lot.
Yeah, you haven't had a chance to get into the depths of it. Now, I do have to say, just looking over it, the guilds that I like the best are, a lot of these are in here. I like a good Rakdos, I like a good Azorius, and I like a good, I always mispronounce it, the black-white, the Orzova, oh my god.
I think it's Orzova.
Orzova. Oh god. It's such, again, it's names and weird spellings. Thank you, Magic. You always come up with those.
Oh yeah, they got to come up with names that make it so that each thing's unique, right?
Yeah.
So that they can play into it. The thing is that some of those though, that's kind of a hint at which ones will potentially be coming back, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're basic, obviously they redid Absorb, right? They brought back Absorb from Invasion or whatever it was, whatever it was back there, right?
Yeah.
So that's easy to bring forward, but it's hard for them to bring something forward like an unusual name. So, yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, and it's. they've managed, I think, in certain places to hit on stuff which I feel like it's the I didn't know we'd be having this again kind of things.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure with the craziness that was the original Ravnica, I didn't know, like, especially because that was, right after the Kamigawa, which was kind of meh. I like the theme of Kamigawa, but I can understand why it never went well. And so this was, like, the big snapback, the original one. And so, yeah, a lot of, like, love has been in the sets as of, at least for Ravnica. And it seems like they've done a decent job, and their storyline seems interesting. But I haven't hit into their storyline as much, I think, as I'd like to, because it seems as though, like, too much craziness is going on, and, like, they put out a novel to go with it now, finally again. When I was relying a lot of times to keep up with the story on those little, like, story pages they would put out weekly. And it's not as big, and I haven't caught up with it anyways. That's my own bad on that end. So maybe I would get a little bit of it. But it seems like they're saying, like, there's yet another one in this block of cards. Because they're not really calling them block, they're calling them... It's a block, and they're doing 3 sets. And the next one is not focused on the guilds as much, it's focused on, you know, Planeswalker fight. I mean, I guess it's Ravnica's the backdrop for it now.
Right.
So,
right. That's the scene. Right?
Yeah. And...
Yeah. I mean, that's what they do. If you don't, you know, Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, I should say, when they first started, they had a slogan that they ran for probably about 8 months. That was, "We make games as big as movies." Mm-hmm. And it's definitely some of those people that still work there have been working there since then. And they ran that for like 8 months, by the way. They got rid of it almost immediately because they only made they really only made Magic the Gathering, and they were trying to make other games as well. They were like, "Hey, check out this other one." And everybody's like, "Nope, keep making Magic," you know. So, so you know, the gaming community was like, "Nope," you know. And so they were like, "Well, maybe we don't make games as big as movies. Maybe we just make a game as big as a movie." So it's definitely their attitude for them, and I think it's the right way to do it. In that, like. If you want to get into the theme, right? If you want to get into the lore, they've got it. It's you know, it's everywhere, and they do a really good job with it. They've got really great writers doing that. So, you know, I think that they're 2 separate things, though. They're you can appreciate what's going on there, and then there's the game, and they don't always match up in a great way because they're completely different teams doing it. So it does feel weird sometimes when you're like, if you're a hardcore gamer and you're gaming and you're playing the game like crazy, and then you're like. Then you find out, like, oh wait, this garbage card that I've been playing, or this garbage ability, is supposed to be that guy's big, you know, strength, and he's like the leader of this, you know, he's leader of this one army. That guy's a jabroni, and I every time I open him up, I'm like, that's my garbage rare out of my box, you know. So it's a little bit of a disconnect there, right?
Yeah,
I think that's maybe what you're kind of hinting on.
I'm also kind of like worried because I recognize that, recently. Amonkhet was supposed to be this, like, big kind of story arc that they did, almost. And it kind of was just blah on both fronts was the problem.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And,
I remember when the boxes came out, people were angry. Gamers were angry.
Yeah. And it's like the concept behind it, the Egyptian field, was awesome. You know, that could have gone great. But it just somehow they, like, messed up.
Cards, too, with the you know, unique backgrounds. They were cool as hell.
Yeah, and so they had there was something that could have been there and it wasn't, and I feel like this is a point in time where they're taking, you know, Ravnica, which they just been doing Ravnica storyline in the last 2 of them, which is great, but now they're bringing in their, like, a little bit of their, like, overarching storyline, and they can do it right, but I'm worried that they might not, because I feel like when their big storylines are a focus, like, in the middle rather than on the forefront, I feel like it does better. You know, it's sort of like, there's this going on, but there's also this, you know, and those work best. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, for me, I usually just kind of, it's hard, you know. I've got 2 friends that are, like, super into Star Wars, so they absorb everything that goes on, you know. And as movies come out, when the last movie came out, they were, like, freaking out, and they were kind of joining in a lot of the harping on, you know, well, I don't think the story should be doing this and blah blah. And I'm like, dude, at some point you have to just kind of fall back and just be like, I'm just going to be a consumer. And yes, I have given this company a lot of money, but it's my hobby. And they may or may not do the right thing with it over time. But, you know, wow, this is a weird side note. I'm gonna launch into WWE wrestling. So it's the same type of stuff with the storyline stuff that happens there. Now, I'm not saying I'm super into WWE now. I was definitely, when it was just called WWF, I was a huge fan of those stupid storylines, like, you know, just soap opera BS that you'd get super into, and you knew it was fake, and you would laugh your ass off because you'd see The Rock jump up there and he would say the stupidest crap, and you still say those lines, right? But my point is in that world, they literally call it the money is in the chase, right? And they actually say that, which is not something that you hear a lot, but it actually showed up in the you know, I don't know if you watched the Glow on Netflix. It was actually you know, it wasn't a documentary. There was a Glow documentary, then there was a show. On the Glow show, Mark Maron, who plays one of the characters, literally said the money's in the chase, and I was like, oh man, they dropped it. They said the thing. And it's the same type of thing for Magic the Gathering. They can't give you exactly what you want. If they do, that will be the last set they make. So the money is in the chase. The money's in the chase, and the money is in making cards and writing lore that is almost what you want. And usually enough, and I don't say that because they're evil. I'm not trying to like this big conspiracy theory. They're not going to give us what we want ever. What I mean to say in this context is that they can't just be like, here is the best set that's ever been. Boom, you're welcome. Give us money. They let's say they have like 50 cards. They're like, holy crap, these are really good. They're really, you know, these you know, do some things. They'll be like, all right, we're going to take 5 from this and we're going to put it into this set and build around that. Now, I don't know that that's how they do it, but that's how I would do it. You know, so yeah, so you sometimes you just gotta find those little, you gotta find the card combos that are there. You gotta find the cool story in the lore. You have to appreciate the writing that's happening, you know?
Yeah. No, and the thing is, I do definitely appreciate, like, the thing is, as much as like people were definitely harking on Amonkhet, I thought it was a relatively interesting storyline, and it's like, I just feel like they changed pace after that a little bit, and I'm worried that like it's a little harder for them to bring together. They're trying to bring together those storylines. I'm going to be curious as to if they can do it right, and if they do, great, awesome.
Yeah,
you know, because I meet that kind of odd place where I'm both a collector of Magic the Gathering cards. I do love the game, but I love collecting them too, and I love diving into the lore a lot too. It's the same for like all role-playing games and stuff like that. A good lore definitely gets me happy.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
But no, the set looks great from what we've seen. I don't think I want to, again, like, until I get a chance to get some of these cards and like definitely dive into them, maybe we'll try to see if the next couple of weeks we can get someone on that's a little bit more Magic-centric that we can talk with them about the set. But it is out now, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out like 2 or 3 days ago, right? Or, yeah, something like that.
It would have been, I think, technically...
maybe a week ago?
Technically, the pre-release was last week, and the official release was, like, yesterday, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because they had it on Arena last weekend for the pre-release. They started a lot of the stuff, and that's when I got my first, like, taste of what's to come, because people already started building decks with it.
Of course. You know, it's, like, as soon as they get a chance. As soon as they get a chance. I don't know, as like I look over the card list, I'm sure there's people that like know this in and out right now, and I'm like, I know, I can see some of them right now.
I like the addendum ability though, that if you play a card in the main phase that has addendum, it has an extra benefit.
No, that's cool. Like the thing is, I think they always do very good with Ravnica when it comes to special abilities. There's never any that are like awful. There are just some that are like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things that they have had, like, some of the problems with other sets is like, you can think of abilities that are like, ooh, I don't like that ability, but...
oh, God. I remember Ninjutsu.
Ninjutsu I kind of liked.
I know you liked it. I hated it. It was one of the times that I left Magic for a while.
Well, I mean, I didn't really encounter. I was out from Magic for that point in time too, because I got real inability to buy a lot of cards. So, but anyway, so Ravnica, which I've been saying it right finally. For a while I was calling it Ravnica. So Ravnica Allegiance is out now. Go ahead and check it out. Let's move on though. I wanted to talk about Shadowrun No Future. This is the latest Shadowrun book that's out. Oh, that's not my one. Mm-hmm. It is one that came out as part of their 30th anniversary celebration for both Shadowrun and I think it's 35th for BattleTech. We talked a little bit about that last week. But this one seems very interesting because it's a book different than any of the other books that I think I've seen in a while, because it specifically focuses on media in Shadowrun. That's one of those interesting things that I'm like, that's not very character driven. That's the unusual thing about it. Most of the time it's it's vehicles or it's guns or it's magic or it's the Matrix, all that kind of stuff. But no, this is it's their trid dramas, pirate broadcasts, bands, music, things like that. It's culture book.
Yeah, but that can drive the role-playing aspect a lot.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it can't. But most of the time when you see, a culture book in particular, I would say, if I take, something like Pathfinder, they do, you're this region of the world, let's do culture. And Shadowrun has done a little bit about that, too. Sort of here's, London in the 2070s,
Right.
We don't have a general culture book, especially on role-playing games, unless you're talking about, a core book where it has it in there. Then you might see it, but this is a culture book for culture's book's sake, it seems.
Yeah, but I mean, also with the media broadcasts and stuff, you can, there's a lot of stuff you can add into a game that's not necessarily just culture.
That's true.
I mean, you could have a campaign based on you're running some kind of pirate broadcast basically, and you're trying to get the truth. You're going on missions to find out what's really going on and throwing out that information and trying to evade people who are stopping you.
Yeah, and I can see some of this because it mentions the sports, and that's something that's mentioned in a couple places. But now it's I can see having a mission where you're infiltrating a sports team in order to maybe get information from the owner, which sounds very Shadowrun-y kind of mission, but it would involve information that we didn't really have up until now. It does seem silly, I'm infiltrating a sports team. Let's go play some. What is it there's the gang war sport. I can't remember them all off the top of my head.
I don't know the sports, but the one thing that just popped in my head, which I completely forgot existed, was the cartoon Mutant League.
I know. I was gonna start naming random side. I was gonna say Jacked Ball. Excuse me, from Final Fantasy X.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Jack Ball. I remember playing a lot of that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But just Mutant League popped in my head because I'm it could be a league of all people who are decked out in weird tech and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, Urban Brawl. I remember the one now, where it sounds like you're just beating the crap out of each other.
But see, that could be a plot point too. Of it's supposed to be maybe a league that no one has enhancements, and you find out some player has some kind of tech that hasn't been released and is using it to its advantage.
Yeah. And I think diving into this culture is definitely really good. It's just, I feel like this is actually a very good book I was actually not expecting. I think that's the way I want to say it. I didn't expect Catalyst to put it out, because as much as Catalyst, they do a great job in Shadowrun, they don't put that many books out overall. It's not like third edition D&D, and their giant amounts of books that they've put out. So that's why I feel like Wizards doesn't do a lot of D&D world books because they have a billion of them already, and Pathfinder does their billions of world books. This is a rich cultural world that we don't get a lot of core books on, and you might say, like, well, they did some in previous editions, but they skip a decade every edition, and a decade's a long time. A place can change a lot in a decade, so
yeah.
I'm happy.
It's hard to think that even our last decade has changed drastically.
Yeah.
Like, what was it, 12 years ago? 12 years ago was when like social media kind of really started. Holy moly!
Yeah, God,
right.
Technology. Look at phones and tablets.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In the last decade, they've advanced exponentially.
It's like, I remember back in my high school days, I wouldn't have like dreamed of having a cell phone, and now everyone has them in like elementary school and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, I remember. God, this probably was about 6 or 7 years ago when I was working at Toys R Us, and
me too.
a couple was buying an iPad for their 2-year-old. I'm like, they have tablets made for children. Oh, he's already advanced past that.
Yeah, he's bored with that.
Yeah, it's like,
God,
like Jesus, it seems like we are like right around the corner from just being cyborgs.
Yeah.
Just put next step.
Yeah, just put it in our brains. Just put it in our brains. Thank you. We just so like oh wait, I'm getting a call.
Let me look that up on the internet. Okay, I got it.
What should be doing if they advance the storyline in Shadowrun every looking at their initial print runs, because that's going to be next, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like 2030.
Shadowrun, because it's an alternate future. I think they're 2070 now.
Yeah,
they jumped
a bunch.
4 editions ago.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing is, like, if you look back, like, 4 editions ago, it was like 2030 or like 2040 or something. It's like
it's so funny.
Well, that's like any sci-fi that deals with the future.
Well,
like, by the year 2000, blah blah blah. It's like,
well, I mean, like, because they have a history and they haven't changed it, and it started like. So they started like what I think it was like late 80s, and they had like dates that were late 90s. They're like, it started as like this could be the future, and now it's just an alternate world. This was an alternate future that back in the 90s things went to crap. Sorry, and then magic came back. This could have been us.
Well, that's how they got in trouble with that's how they got in trouble with the old CIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was that FBI or whatever when they broke in and had to from Steve Jackson? Remember the whole thing?
Oh yeah.
Thing? Yeah. It's the same type of thing. That's why you have to be like, it's not this universe. It's not 10 years from now.
I want my 3 seashells. That's all I have to say.
God.
Good God.
Oh, demolition man.
And let's all go have dinner at Taco Bell.
100%, dude. I still remember the looks of all that scene when all the actors were like, "Oh yes, like the same thing that happens when I tell the girls I have 2 daughters when they were young, and I'd be like, "We're going to McDonald's." It's like the same look, right? Like, you've made all my dreams come true.
Oh God. Yep. No,
I'll just pass on any burgers I get in the sewer.
There you go. Good God.
Hey, if it's what you got, it's what you got. Yeah, back to Shadowrun. I think this is a book I definitely am very interested in maybe checking out, just because I am a big fan of Shadowrun. I hate running it, but I love the world.
And the PDF's on sale right now for $24.99.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, it's PDF only, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It looks to be. So, I mean, that's...
Considering their original price is $50, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, a lot of those times you see those things, they have the discount built in. So it's
true,
like,
because it's like, no one's going to pay $50 for a PDF only.
It's an advertising thing, too. It's like when you... a lot of places, if you add that little, like, discount, people make it think it's... But it's like...
Oh, it's worth it. They might go back up to 50.
And it's also, I feel like, bigger companies tend to do that a bunch still, so, but... And maybe, like, they originally were going to price it at 50 and put it down, so there might be
or maybe they originally were going to actually print it
Yeah.
and charge 50 and
oh.
decided to do it as a PDF. So they're like, oh, look, we were going to charge 50 for this, but we really wanted it as a PDF for 25.
Billion reasons, but
That
anyway.
would make more sense because it's like, yeah, 50 for a book like this. If it was hardcover, sure.
Yeah.
50 for a PDF, no.
But anyway, so No Future is out. Let's continue our tour of some RPGs because there are still a couple more that have come out that I do want to talk about with Saga of Midgard. Now, this was a Kickstarter, which I'm always glad to see. Anything Kickstarter come out. It was kickstarted last year, and it was funded in apparently 90 minutes. So
Wow.
people really wanted their Viking epic RPG.
Well, with how popular Thor is.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, Thor. That'll do it. Yeah, just doing any kind of just harking on the entire system there.
Yeah, I mean, and Ragnarok was Thor's best movie,
Yeah, that's true.
so it makes sense.
So apparently, a big part of the system is a D100.
Oh God, not the golf ball.
Yep.
I wonder if you could get an actual D100 or I still like relying on my 2D10s.
Your
That
percentiles.
my percentile dice.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, you gotta do it.
God, you just gotta do it. I haven't seen.
No, I'm sorry. If the game is based on a D100, you have to have a D100.
I don't want to get the golf ball.
Too bad.
You gotta wait for that thing to stop. So every
Yeah.
time you roll, you waste a minute.
That's when you use an app.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. I'm going old school on this. I'm old.
I remember rolling the golf ball. I
Yes.
remember it.
They also can break in half.
They
Oh,
do.
really? That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, usually when they broke in half, you're like, "Oh, my golf ball's broken." Oh.
Yeah, it's like it drops and it can. It's normally a two-piece that's put together, and if it drops, it can crack, and now you have two halves of a D100 that are useless.
Oh God. Yeah. So no, I mean, a Viking epic based game is definitely very cool. I think, off the top of my head, I can't name a lot of games that were specifically set in that kind of world. It is a different type of fantasy.
Yeah, this is actually, it's not just like Vikings, right? This is actually like a Norse mythology thing.
Yeah, it's more like a Norse. It's I would call it a Viking epic. Would be best describe it. So.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the one picture on the page, you can see. Oh God, what's the wolf's name?
It's It's not Fafnir. It's similar to that.
Fenrir?
Fenrir. You can see Fenrir. You can see the world dragon,
World Serpent, and
World
you
Serpent.
can see,
you can see
the fire
Valkyrie. Yeah, that, and you can see Valkyries. You can see Thor about to hit the World Serpent.
Right.
Oh, that's right, because he got to fight with it. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember some Viking mythology or Norse mythology. I'm sorry.
Norse mythology, yeah. But yeah, you can see a lot of the epic stuff from Norse mythology just in that picture.
Yeah, and I mean, they definitely seemed like they, just reading up some information from some of the stuff they're sharing. They've attempted to put all the money from their Kickstarter into it, which is good for them. The art looks great. I do have to say, the little bits of art I've seen.
Oh wow, the downloadable character sheet's really cool. It actually has artwork.
Oh, see, that's awesome, and I think that's one of the things that a good company does that, and that's something that if I would ever do a Kickstarter, I want to make sure that I throw things back into it if I got extra. You do want to keep a little just so making some kind of profit, but you want to make sure it's that perfect balance of you're not just taking advantage of things.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is for me, and this is what definitely what we've seen in my little company here that we're doing. When you get that big chunk of money, it's best to just spend it back on the community that gets you there. Yeah. And the thing is I feel like 80% of the creators, at my level and above, that's the way they operate. That they're like, oh man, this game took off a lot harder than we thought it would. We got a lot more sales. So we can either make an expansion at a really cheap price and advance this game in a really cool way, or we can spend some extra money to zhuzh up all the all the items and make everything really, really cool, or something like that. And essentially that's what we see with the stretch goal system. But I think that I don't know what they, in their case, how they're collecting their money or like what they're deciding to spend it on. But I mean, you get to a spot where you're like, I mean, it's going to sound stupid to say, but there is a spot where it's like too much money is not good. You're like, ooh, should I have this? And it feels weird.
Yeah. So the game though does look cool. They do mention it's because it's a Viking epic. Character death is something that you gotta expect, and it's. I always say that character death in a role-playing game is one of those weird twists that you have to plan for it, and it took me so long to get comfortable with it as a GM. Unfortunately,
the thing is, it sucks when your character dies, but at the same time, if there's no threat of actual death,
it's not
then
fun.
then where's the tension? Where's the interest? It's like, oh, I'm immortal, I can't get hurt. I might get hurt, but I'm not going to die. Well, okay, then I'll do whatever I want.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's like your first day of prison. When you first walk in, if you're a GM. If you're a GM, first day, it's like just like the first day of prison. When you walk in, you got to kill someone so they know you mean business. Yep.
So kill the barbarian on the first day because he's the biggest, baddest guy.
No. You got to kill the plucky. Mascot of the team. So everybody's just like, oh my gosh, why?
So kill the bard.
Yeah, all right.
Kill the bard.
All right.
Hide behind the pile of dead bards.
Yep.
And it all comes back to bards.
Oh, God. I think that's the thing is like, that's for any role playing game is that you have to balance the threat with the feelings of non-threat. And I think that's where I'm at right now. Is I've gotten to that. Let the dice roll. If you get killed by it, I'll figure something out.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to be killing off someone every session.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's just gonna be a bunch of people recovering all the time. It's not gonna be fun.
No.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's the collaborative storytelling aspect of RPGs. Just like lend themselves to, hey, your character died. It's Game of Thrones style. Let's do something new, right? Like bring in one new character, but you don't want to go crazy.
No,
I shouldn't have said Game of Thrones style because if it was Game of Thrones style, it'd be every week new characters, right?
Yeah, would. Everybody's dying.
Yep.
Sagas of Midgard, it seems interesting. It looks like they've got some interesting systems with like settlement building and raiding, so you can feel very Viking-y, definitely. Like runic magic, lots of different powers. It looks like surnames and titles, which I guess that sounds very Viking. I'm bad on my Viking actual history, so when they say surnames and titles, I feel like I should say oh, that's neat. But then again, I'm like, oh, I don't know enough.
Right.
But no, Sagas of Midgard, it's out. The core book just came out. They do have hardcovers you can get, or you could just get the PDF. So. And there is one other RPG that just released I do want to talk about then, and that's a dark fantasy one. So, would that fit in line with a Viking one? Because I don't know if Viking, like Norse mythology saga would be called dark fantasy. I guess it would be epic fantasy. So anyway, Knights and Legends. It also is another one that has just come out, and the core rulebook is just out. So... Sorry, here. I have to get a drink.
No problem. So Knights and Legends. This is actually who made this? Who's the actual?
Where is Luden's Games? Or is that Luden's Games system? I think it's Luden's Games. Luden. It uses Luden's Games system, and I can't see who made this. If I go to Drive Through RPG for looking at it, it's the Knights and Legends tabletop RPG. Apparently there's more Knights of Legends stuff out. Gotcha. And this is just the tabletop RPG itself, the campaign book. Mm-hmm. It's like a toolkit for it. It has the world of Azora. They've got their own kind of combat system. I don't know much about the Luden's gaming system, actually, at all.
Yeah, neither do I.
But there's a lot of gaming systems out there, so it's kind of hard to, like, pull them all apart.
Right.
It's very deadly combat. It's meant to be immersive. It's got abilities and spells, of course. It does have religions, more. It's a basic core rule book. And, I mean, it seems as though they have built whatever company this is, which I can't find the company itself, which is kind of weird.
One of the weird things that I'm seeing here is that you know, it's so funny because like Dungeons & Dragons really set the standard, you know, for kind of like what your character sheet should look like. This game has its stat line is strength, endurance, wisdom, spirit, speed, right? And which is only 5, right? So there's like 1 missing, so to speak. And I think it's intelligence. I think wisdom is supposed to be intelligence or something, but like wisdom was wisdom. I don't know. So whatever. I always think it's funny when companies come up with RPG ideas and then like they try to streamline it, but they do it in this really weird way that doesn't really, because we're so used to the Dungeons & Dragons system. It's weird when we look at something that's even slightly different. It's like you're looking at it's like you're looking at a knockoff painting. You're like, something seems off here. What's going on?
Yeah. Which you can look up stuff about. Like, it's interesting that the Knights and Legends, it's so... Like, beyond the book on the drive-through RPG, it's like hard for me to find some extra things here just quickly, and like I can't find a lot about the company. That's just kind of weird. Yeah.
They did a Kickstarter, right?
I think so.
I think they did.
I can't. Sorry, I would have to look up Kickstarter.
I don't think so. I think they did.
Oh wait, I found it.
Weird.
No, that's 90 Nights. No, that's right. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're just like, it's out now.
That's a weird thing about it.
Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah.
It's like you dropped it on the table and then ran away.
Yeah, like I saw this cover art and it literally interested me. Like, oh, that's really cool. And apparently it's the second edition, technically, which I don't even remember, like, when was their first edition?
Maybe their first edition was, like, written on some tablets and they were, like, handing them. We've all done that.
Well, it does look like they have other, like, Knights and Legends books, but it looks like none of them were, like, one core book. And I think that's what this is sort of like. They're finally bringing together a lot of the stuff they've put together in one core book at this point in time. So, I mean, that's an interesting evolution in an RPG system, definitely.
Oh, well, I mean, this could be the type of thing where it's like a small handful of people that are basically spitballing and just basically making, they learn how to make their own books, and they just kind of like, hey, we're going to make some cool stuff, and we're going to add, this book's going to explain all the different races of the world, and this book's going to, and then at one point they're like, this is weird, and like people are missing books because like, oh yeah, that book that talks about how you combat works, we're no longer printing that one. Then all of a sudden they just have no way for anybody to get into the game, and and so they have to essentially create this kind of source book like this, make it so that people can actually enjoy it.
Yeah, and it looks like they've been working on this for 3 years, so it's been like 3 years of different things. And they do have like, I guess, campaign material that's out, so you like a little like campaign you can play with it. So it's like, this is what our culmination of all our stuff is, you can play it with all our things that we've put out now, definitely this is the example of it. And I think that's an interesting way that they've taken about building it, because normally you look to like a core book first, and I don't know if is this good or bad? I don't know, actually. Would you want to go in this direction, like put out a lot of smaller materials and finally like build to a core book that's everything that you're building on? It almost just feels like it's kind of like a weird, like, almost like, I wouldn't call it Kickstarter, but like you're putting out materials which are funding more materials to build up to the big material.
Totally.
So definitely interesting, and definitely a little different than your average RPG, I would say. But if you do like dark fantasy, you can check out Knights and Legends. The core book is on PDF. The main they have a collection of books too. You can apparently get up on Drive-Thru RPG. That's like a bunch of their different things, including the core book for $20 for the PDFs, or you can just get the basic core book for like $7 on Drive-Thru RPG. So not cost effective.
Right.
As my dad said, it's never cheap.
A good value.
It's never cheap. It's always cost effective.
Sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we don't want to go too late, so let's move on, though. I do want to talk about Zorro.
Yeah, on Kickstarter now.
Yeah, on Kickstarter now.
Yeah.
Because this is a... I didn't see a Zorro RPG coming.
Yeah, right. So
no one ever expects
Zorro. Let me lift back the veil a little bit on the game industry a little bit. This is one fun happens. So when you go to an event and you're you're a publisher, okay?
Yeah.
I self-publish, so somehow I'm a publisher. But like when people pitch me their games, I'm like, dude, I'm you in 9 months. Like I'm a jabroni. You're talking to the wrong person. But what ends up happening is people come by with like these little books of binders, and they're like, hey, here's all the IPs that I own. And they basically start flipping through them. And these IPs are like old TV shows and weird side things that happen. So again, remember I was telling you that we've been pitched RPGs. I am positive that someone made an RPG and then met up with somebody who was like, I own the Zorro IP. And then boom, we got this game.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of the way it happens. It's a funny, weird world, the way that games are made. And I'm sure that it's working great for them. So it looks like a campaign's only been going for a few days, and they're pretty strong, almost 20K already.
Yeah, and apparently it's the 100th anniversary of Zorro.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because they got a little thing on the Kickstarter that apparently 1919. Yeah, holy crap!
Crazy. Yeah, that's the old story, right? Get some Don Quixote going. Maybe in a future expansion.
Yeah. No, the thing about this is I find it very interesting because it's like it's a swashbuckling heroic one, but it's Wild West. And that's the thing I think makes it unique, because like we do have some Wild West games out there, but normally when you go Wild West, you go very traditional, like, like cowboys,
playing
bandits,
poker, all that jazz.
Yeah. And just doing like the heroic, swashbuckler is not something that we see a lot. And I think Zorro is the culmination of that kind of like a different take on Westerns, and so seeing an RPG of it sounds really cool.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's why I definitely wanted to like kind of shout it out here more than just as like the Kickstarter suggestion, because it's finding a unique and I've got that in the background now. Must be a fire. Finding a unique, I guess, genre for a role-playing game nowadays, I feel like I say this a bunch, is always something I love seeing.
Right.
And it seems like they're doing a D6 system, which good on them.
Yep. It's a bold move.
Hey, Shadowrun does it right, even though it hurts my soul sometimes.
Yeah.
They've gotten better. 5th edition is playable. I'd like to see Fox Leather Collector's Edition. You can get 2. That's kind of cool. But yeah, no, Zorro. I did want to kind of like throw that out there. I think Zorro is one of those ones that I've had like some experience with, but I've never been like the ridiculous swashbucklers into it. So
sure.
I'm glad to see that this is actually not a bad way of honoring the 100-year-old IP.
Right.
Yeah.
And you apparently can get like the PDF and all the stretch goals for 15, or the core rulebook for 60 with all the PDFs and all the stretch goals.
Right.
So that's cool. I mean, 60 is not bad for a 200+ page core book at all.
Sure.
And it's funded. So anyway, Zorro, giving a shout out to it there. Let's continue though. Unless Joe, you have anything about Zorro. I don't know if you've experienced with Zorro.
I know of Zorro, and that's about it.
I think I recall back like times where like my mother would watch some of it because she was an old fan, but that's always like your parents kind of get you into some of these things occasionally. But
Yeah.
now I did want to talk a little bit about Discovering New Lands because we talked about this game previously, that it's a board game that Fantasy Flight came out with, which I would call interesting. It's interesting because no one box is supposed to be alike. All the boxes...
Right. Keyforge, right?
Yeah, it's like Keyforge, except this is supposed to be like a board game version of it. So it's like everyone has slightly different components that you're going to get slightly different thing. And...
I got opinions, so I'm glad that we're talking about this.
Okay. And they just introduced, of course, for free, which is good for Fantasy Flight, but they introduced cooperative rules. So it's like, here's a different way you can play with the same thing. Which, I mean, I think we discussed a lot about the entire dynamic of having a board game that no two board games are alike. We discussed that a little bit. And then it'd be really hard to, like, get different components. And then would it be worth it to buy different ones? But we got into that. So it sounds like you have some things to say. So why don't I turn it over
it
to you?
Sounds like you kind of already covered it. Well, essentially what I was going to. But I will say, well, I don't want to say it sound like I'm trashing on Fantasy Flight, because I'm actually a monstrous fan of theirs. I think that them releasing the rules like they did, I think, is an actual indication that maybe Discover Lands Unknown has not done well. So, because essentially they probably had those in their pocket ready to go as an expansion, as an actual like thing they were going to give to you and sell to you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that maybe it didn't do too well. So they're like, well, what do we do? Do we push ahead and make the games? Do we make the expansion? Do we make it as a standalone? What do we do? Because and then they're like, well, I don't think we're really doing anything with it. So let's just put out what we have as like a community, gift, right? So, and of course that's complete speculation. But a company like Fantasy Flight, there's no way that they, excuse me, again, coughing like crazy. There's no way that they need to give away product for free, essentially. And obviously, again, complete speculation. Yeah. But I don't think this Discover Lands Unknown did what they wanted, just because Keyforge came out almost the exact same time. Both two games have very similar technologies, very similar gimmicks to them. And then obviously Keyforge just takes off like wildfire because it's such a game. And I think that Discover Land Unknown kind of just got lost,
And I think, like, when you look at Keyforge, it feels a lot more like a collectible deck building game and stuff like that. Or it's like,
of course.
It feels more like, you're buying into something like a Magic or something. While, on the other hand, Discover Lands Unknown, it feels it's a board game, and everybody having their own version of the board game seems interesting, but I don't know. It's like, I think Joe and I talked about this before. It's like, if they would come out with like an expansion with like just one type of component that you could get, like, oh, we can just get all of this, so we have options then,
Right.
So I will tell you, as far as a game design part of it, I think so. So we have a game, like, remember I told you that we have essentially 3 games we're kind of like actively working on, and then we've got maybe 4 or 5 others that are just like maybe we'll make someday. One of those 4 or 5s basically came about with this kind of thought process. What if we made a game where people kind of go down different paths of the storyline, and what we want to have happen is like, let's say it's a science fiction game, is like my game group plays it and then your game group plays it, and then you and I like meet each other at a convention or an event, and then we go, oh, you played that game? That's cool. What'd you do when all the aliens showed up? And you're like, dude, aliens? What? There were aliens in yours? Oh, on mine, like there was like these guys that were like, there was some intergalactic political stuff happening. And I'm like, oh, I didn't see any of that. So I think that that's what they were trying to do with Discover Lands Unknown. They were trying to create this like kind of like conversation happening. Like, oh, I had this character and I did this thing. And then basically making it so that you felt that you were getting a personalized experience that was discovery based. Like, I am excuse me, like I am like I'm an explorer, right? Like I'm seeing stuff that no one else has seen, and I'm getting a personal experience. And I think that was a good move, and I'm glad that someone did it. I just don't know that gamers are ready for it. I think that gamers like to talk to each other in a way of like, oh well, what do like fourth turn I do this, and on the fourth when I do that, then it can combo into the next thing, maybe, right? Like that's the way. That's exactly how you talk when you play Magic the Gathering. Like if you're not having those kind of conversations with other Magic the Gathering players, you're not at the tournament level. If you're not saying like, well, on the third turn I try to do this, and the optimal situation is by sixth turn I'm at X, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is many board games they come down to the same types of strategy level. You're like, well, mid game, short game, end game strategies, right? So Discover Lands Unknown doesn't have that. It's just like, hey, a personalized experience. And I don't, I think that's people that like to read books. Not that gamers don't like to read, but people that are not that kind of strategy-based mindset, or willing to do a strategy-based mindset, I should say. I don't know that they're really able to really enjoy this kind of game in the way that Fantasy Flight was hoping they would.
And I think, like, they went, as you're saying, like, were people ready for this? Because, like,
right.
You can still have experiences like that in games that I can name a game, like, I love Betrayal House of the Hill. I can play through that, and I would have, because, like, there's so many different scenarios, I will have a vastly different game than someone else. And they just put out their, like, expansion with, like 100 new things. So, like, there's 200, different games you can have. Yeah. And it's still all the same components. And I think that's, like, one of those things is, like, that is the level I think we're at. And this is, like, a step farther. Definitely.
Well, also at the same time, this is with Discover. I think that it was an attempt to turn the betrayal system on its side, and then also kind of make a game that potentially might even be cheaper to make, because when you have to create that much content, you have to pay a writer to write those content. When we did Bard of the Queen, the amount of writing that was involved was so bad that I actually got massive writer's block, like 65% of the way through. And I had to bring a friend in just to unlock me. And then he wrote about maybe 10%, and it pushed me in a spot where I was like, okay, great. But we're a small team, and that game's content is like overwhelming. But Fantasy Flight, man, they turn it up, right? And Betrayal and House of Hill, made by a different company, they did the same thing. The amount of content you have to write is massive. So they had to pay all those people. You still have to pay that money, right? So Discover might be an attempt to make that type of game, but give you a personalized experience and only give you the 1 or 2 5 paths or whatever, instead of trying to give you 200.
Yeah. So it's like and again, like they said, like it was going over it again. They have like 5 scenarios with the game, and the thing is, like, it's randomized, but that's the difference. It's like rather than 100 scenarios, they could have come up with like 30 and then just randomize them between all the games. So it's like, yes, the scenarios might be the same, but it's like because they're randomizing so many different components. Yeah, they're going to be very different.
Right.
And I don't know. It was such an ambitious and interesting project, I definitely say. And I am glad that they've come up with co-op rules, because that's like, you could play through these scenarios much differently then.
Yeah, and it brings some more life into the game as well, right?
Yeah. So I'm curious as if they will do anything else with it again, but I don't know then. As you were saying, maybe this is just their...
Again, complete speculation.
Yeah, complete speculation. And the thing is, it might be, because as you said, Keyforge has hit off, and Discover Lands Unknown.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much of it other than this as, like, the next thing they're doing.
Right.
And Fantasy Flight is...
Keyforge.
Yeah.
They'd be stupid not to press really hard on Keyforge and just go crazy.
Yeah.
The game's solid. I played it with my buddies. I taught it to my kids. We have a great time with it. It's a great game.
Yeah. And Fantasy Flight is very good at following up things.
They know what they're doing.
Well, that's one of the... I think that's, like, the only major complaint I've ever had about Fantasy Flight is they follow with things a lot.
Yeah. Every game they make is basically meant to be tournament style.
Yeah.
And they do it so that they can go to events and have a great showing and have hundreds of people show up for whatever tournament they're throwing, and everybody has a great time. They make an absolute killing. It's a great business model, and they're doing amazing. All tournament style games are awesome. You want to play them all.
And I have to say, like, for the one role playing game that they really do, Star Wars, they kill it on that one. So I mean, that
absolutely.
So
100%.
Definitely, they do a good job. But anyway, all right. So that is our basic docket for today. Let's move on to our regular segments. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a deeper discussion this week because Joe and I didn't do anything last week. It got snowy in winter weather.
We played online.
We did play online, but we didn't do a new game online. We didn't
No, true, yeah.
And deeper discussions are review.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Your brain fart.
Yep. We didn't have a chance to review anything because winter weather prevented us from meeting up.
Which actually didn't really happen.
It sort of did.
It just got really cold.
And I wanted to travel. I'm just saying.
No, I understand. There was a risk, and it wasn't worth risking it. No. But what they said was going to happen did not happen.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to the next regular segment, though. Kickstarter Korner, where I've already given a shout out to Zorro today, of course, but if there's any, I do like giving shout outs to other Kickstarters. Of course, I'm definitely going to give one to Battle of the Bards, which is coming out on Monday.
Yay! Yeah.
Yes.
Coming out on Monday. We're relaunching on Monday. Let's do this.
Yes. But we've talked about that one a bunch. Joe, do you have another Kickstarter that you would like to bring up, though, for today?
Yeah, I found an interesting one called Dracula's Feast, New Blood.
Okay, drop the link in chat, if you will, for that one.
Getting that right now. And it has started. It is already fully funded with 27 days to go.
That's always good.
Its goal was 10,000. It's already made over 15.
Mm-hmm.
And has 507 backers. One of the nice things that you don't see very often with a Kickstarter too is you can download the print and play version for free.
That's really nice.
So you can actually completely check out the game and try it before you even kickstart it.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's basically like a werewolf game. You have a party of different monsters. Dracula's throwing a feast.
Mm-hmm.
And he's invited all the townsfolk, and now all these monsters also come and barge in because they want to eat.
All right.
So you're all playing different monsters. Now, the difference is there's no eyes closed round, no elimination, no player elimination, no generic villager role.
Mm-hmm.
Each character in the game has a unique ability, like Dr. Jekyll can transform into a monster at the end of any of their turns.
Mm-hmm.
Each character has unique abilities. You're basically trying to figure out who everyone's kind of a mystery person, and you're trying to figure out who everyone is, and you have to guess every person correctly to win.
All right. Well,
you get one wrong, that's it for that turn.
The other guy wins, right? Yeah.
No, that's it for that turn.
That's just
the other person doesn't automatically win.
So it's
I
kind
thought
of
it was like short rounds. I thought.
It's a little Clue-like, except you can't get eliminated.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now there are some monsters that if they get a guess wrong card, they can automatically show it and guess again.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think Dracula's ability was if you guess the first person you guess was wrong, you can re-guess that person at the end of all your guesses.
Mm. Okay.
So it overall looks really interesting. It's cool that they have the complete download of the rules and the complete download of the game that you can test it out.
No, that's very cool. Neat. So yeah, Dracula Feast, New Blood. It's got 27 days if you want to throw into that one. Now,
yeah, and the cheapest pledge is 19 for the game.
Cool. Now, I did have one I wanted to shout out also, just because it's such a different Drain game. I was just going to say Drain there. is Lex Draconis Be the Dragon, or Lex Draconis. You are a dragon in a modern world. That's it. That's the basic behind it. I mean, it's like you're an RPG where you're playing a dragon, and it's the modern world. That's like it. We've done vampires in a modern world, and werewolves, and all the World of Darkness ones, but I don't think anybody's like done dragons. And they're using a D20 system, and it's basically they give you opportunities to play a dragon, dealing with other dragons, your own struggles, going on quests, kind of things like that, defending what your horde would be. And in a modern day, I feel like defending a horde would be kind of like an entirely different struggle. So I'm very curious to see what they all plan for this one. You know, what they're all going to. Now, they are funded also, 15 days to go. You could get a PDF copy for $20. That's the minimum one. And, you know, they are planning on making their debut at Gen Con 2020. So, it's a different kind of fantasy game. Modern fantasy, we don't see as much of at this point in time. Like, and definitely a game that has you take on something like a dragon. It's a different one. So, I thought it was an interesting one to throw out there.
Cool.
Okay, let's move on to our nearly the last regular segment, which is our week in tabletop. So why don't we start at a different point in time for this one here. David,
Yes.
did you do anything interesting in tabletop this week?
Oh yeah, like you mean as far as playing games?
Yeah, just doing anything tabletop related.
I play games so much it's a little ridiculous. But I in this last week I played a game called Doom Seekers made by Ninja Division. Massive disappointment. It was one of those games at the end I got we discussion of my friends kind of I can bounce ideas off of them, stuff like that. So we kind of treat each game like a book club type thing, which is essentially what we're doing right now, us three. At the end we talked for probably 2 hours about all the mistakes that were made. The reason why we were so disappointed was because Doom Seekers is actually based off of the Warhammer fantasy universe. You're playing these the dwarf troll slayers. Now, in that universe, the troll slayers are actually a type of dwarf that seek their own death by fighting the biggest creature they can fight. So when you become a troll slayer, you are a troll slayer because you've defeated a troll, or that you're trying to defeat trolls, and it's like your lower level kind of, right? And then once they level up, then they become like a giant slayer. Then they become a demon slayer, and they're constantly just fighting a character, the bigger and better creatures, to try to just kill themselves because they're trying to look for a glorious death, right? So we were like, this game, Doom Seekers, is going to be amazing, and it was bad. It was terrible. I will tell the game designer to their face, I'm not afraid, that game was bad. It was so bad that I opened up the rule book of the game. I took a picture of the people, like the little page where it tells you all the people that like worked on the game, and I was trying to figure out if I should contact them and be like, what happened? That's how bad it was.
Wow.
And because there were 17 people, and I was like, dude, my team is a 3-person team, and we would sniff this out, the problems in the game. And when I say it's bad, I don't mean like it wasn't fun, or I'm talking about stuff that did not make sense. There were cards that like were written poorly, so badly that you could like read them multiple different ways, like just stuff that was just bad, like stuff that you do when you first make your game. It was like they made the game and then they launched it like a month later. It was just bad. So now that was with my adult friends. With my kids, I've been playing the Harry Potter deck builder game, having a great time with that one. Oh my gosh, so good. If you're even a remote Harry Potter fan, you should be playing that game. It's a really good representation of deck builder genre and a lot of fun. So yeah, and then obviously I also obviously playing my own games, trying to play test into new stuff. Was able to get Fireball Island out on the table and play that with my kids as well. Fireball Island, I've played it with adults. It's a little weird to play with adults because it definitely has a nostalgic thing, but yeah. It is definitely a great game to be playing with your with young or new gamers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
That's been the last week.
Awesome. Joe, I believe we played some games on Sunday.
We played a game on Sunday. We did another Red Dragon Inn.
Yep.
Yeah. I horribly lost.
I lost two. In the end. You know, it's like
I was first loser.
I know.
From gold. I hate that.
Oh god, yeah, that's always the worst when you like lose by gold. I definitely agree on that one. So that went interestingly, and one of our guests, Umbra, there managed to win in the end. Good on him. And then I think I did the two normal role-playing games this week. I had my Vampire the Masquerade, Legacy of the King, where they met with the Semiche Elder at an event, at a college museum fundraiser in London. That's such a weird place to be, and that was a fun one. And then in D&D we did a short one where they were exploring more islands around a lighthouse in the middle of a lake, and not getting into fights, or getting into fights, combination of those. They decided not to fight the shark, but to go back and beat up the crocodile.
Did they jump the shark though?
Not yet.
When they did this kid.
I keep him around for his humor. Anyway,
at least I'm good for something.
Oh, Joe, now come on. You're good for more than that. You're good. You're good. Anyway,
it's still good. It's just a little on fire.
Yeah. So that was my week in tabletop. Nothing else big and special to talk about from there. All right. Time for our final segment that we have every week, and rarely does anyone take advantage of. Consult the Table, where I tell you and the world out there, if you have a question for us related to tabletop, or just anything else that you want to ask us in general, go ahead and throw it into chat, or to... Ready for the list? Either me or Joe on Twitter, me and my Discord. You can contact us at discussingtabletop@yahoo.com, or you can put it in the comments of this video when it's up on YouTube. Bam, there you go. So, okay.
You know, in this segment, if people are rarely taking advantage of it, you should compile a list from you know, like previous things. Do like a thing where you what do you call it? You know, like I was written this question during this week or whatever, and so you can kind of do it that way. It's hard sometimes. A lot of people they won't be able to tune in live, right?
Yeah.
But they can definitely pick it up later. Some of the podcasts that I listen to, that's just the way they do it. Just because I can't be there when they're live, but you know, if I ever wanted to write in, I totally could potentially get on the show as well.
I try to get it that people can write in, but I think it's like, I think the weird thing is that the audience I have tends to not have any important questions for me.
Yeah,
I guess
right.
is what it is. I've had a couple here and there, and we answer them best of our abilities. But generally speaking, every other time I get a question, it's sort of like, this is a question I can answer, and it's not related to the show. You know?
Oh yeah. When I was church streaming back in the day, and I was playing League of Legends and like Minecraft and stuff like that, I would very commonly get questions, because I'm an older guy, like, hey, what kind of college do you think I should go to? You know, it's like stuff like that. It's like, what? You know, like, you want to ask anything about my games here? They're like, no, I just want to, do you know something about, like, my girlfriend is telling me XYZ. Should I still keep going out with her? Like what? I'm not going to give you relationship advice. Get out of here. You know, so, I mean, it's just, you know, it's what happens. You get fans and they just kind of talk to you that way. It's very funny. So, yeah, they can't always be gamer related. And then when they are gamer related, they're like questions that you can answer with like one sentence. You're like, all right, so we're done with that.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nope. Yep. I one day I'm going to assume that the audience will show up and I'll be able to answer questions. So that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to put that segment in there for sure.
Yep. Anyway. All right. Great show. Great one. We had a lot of great talks. So thanks once again to David for joining us today.
Absolutely.
It was great to have you on. Great to have you join the conversation. Thank you again, Joe, for always putting up with being here as the co-host of me. As
usual, I am glad to.
Yep. David, is there any place that people can check you out, see you, kind of talk to you, kind of things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm me personally on Twitter. I am Dagerr. It's dagger spelled wrong, with one G instead of two, and two R's instead of one. So basically Dagerr on Twitter, and then obviously you can find Junk Spirit Games on Facebook, and you can find Junk Spirit Games on Instagram and Twitter by just taking Junk Spirit Games and removing the spaces.
Cool. I'll throw some of those links. I'll check the main link in chat here.
Yeah,
and I'll throw those.
If you follow me on Twitter, I don't talk anything politics. The closest I get is I will tell you that I want to be president one day, so I can make Skittles go back to the old green line. That's my main platform, my politics. Otherwise, you just get a bunch of gaming and you get a bunch of dad jokes that are terrible. So yeah.
Hey, look, dad jokes are never terrible. They are always wonderful. They consist of everything I'm ever able to do decently. I'm just gonna say that.
There you go.
Anyway, so you can find Joe and I tomorrow for Sundays at the Tabletop, where we will play some tabletop games with a bunch of guests, and chat and do stupid stuff. And then, of course, my normal schedule will be back up, where you can find me on Tuesday for Legacies of Kain, Thursday for Madness of the Land, and some gaming streams here and there, including tomorrow, which I have no idea what I'm playing for. So if you want to show up at noon and watch me play some kind of game for a bit, that's that. But if you're here for the tabletop stuff, hey, we'll be back next week for more Discussing Tabletop. Thank you, David, for joining us yet again, and hopefully we can have you on again someday in the future.
Sure, man.
Great. Excellent. And see you later, everybody. We'll be back next week. Bye.